Living every day in your head for free. You can tap away, but I will not hear you scream. You can break your keys, spread your toxicity, your world outside reality. In your room, a little hideaway, but you let it through enough to go insane.
What's up, Internet? I am Aries Van Dam. How y'all doing today? Happy Hump Day. Do this. There we go. Oh, I'm Aries Van Dam, your Gen X genius, your salt and pepper savant. That's right. The shaman of logic is back. It's been an interesting couple of days. I'm going to be your argument teacher today. That's right. This is an educational channel. I'm just here to help y'all figure out the bad arguments so you don't make them whenever you start arguing, right? Let's see. Oh, but more importantly, I need y'all to meet your co-host, my co-host, actually, Ozzy the Attack Terrier, the greatest co-host in the game. Yeah, there he is. There he is. Look at me. There we go. So, since it is false flag season, I want to just caution you guys when you're out in public, just beware. Beware. It is false flag season. And before we get into the video, I wanted to talk to y'all a little bit about a third party. Because it occurred to me, just a name for this third party, because it's obvious we're going to end up having to have a third party. This next election, whenever you get to choose between a Democrat Zionist or a Republican Zionist, again, I think it's going to occur to people. So I'm hoping we can get something moving on that beforehand so we can get somebody who's not a Zionist to vote for this time. It'd be really nice. And I just think the independent party sounds really nice since it's all independent voters and we're trying to get our independence from Israel. I think that would be a really good name for it. Now, I don't want to waste too much time on that, but it's really apparent here that it's going to be that. They're going to not even talk about it. Watching the debates, they probably won't even talk about Zionism. It's going to be just left versus right. That's all they want to talk about. And who owns the people that put on the debates? ABC, NBC, CBS. Those are all owned by Zionist billionaires. So you're not going to get a non-Zionist candidate most likely. And if you do, they're not going to want to talk about the Zionism issues. So it's going to be a weird, interesting campaign season, depending on how the midterms look. But be on the lookout for that third party. Also, to the debate. Today we're doing Anna Kasparian versus Erica Lebon. I had a very confusing boner for this debate. They are very beautiful women. Very, very beautiful. So I'm just warning you guys, you're going to experience some swelling in this one. But let's get into it.
There's no evidence that 30,000 people were killed. Show me the evidence.
That 30,000 people were killed. I heard it from your mouth.
Where
evidence
is the
is there?
Elika?
Violence, and I'm going to tell you.
You're disgusting.
Oh, good. Insults. That's good.
President Trump says the war in Iran could be over within 2 or 3 weeks. The aftershocks, however, even if that is true, will last for years. Trump has told the Telegraph newspaper in the UK that he's now strongly considering a move to quit NATO altogether. The biggest military alliance in human history is a paper tiger, he said, and Putin knows that too. In a press interview, this is what the former NATO Commander General Sir Richard Sheriff said to me.
That Donald Trump has pretty much single-handedly torpedoed NATO as an alliance. 2 months ago, Donald Trump threatened to attack the territory of a NATO ally, Denmark, over Greenland. Nobody has forgotten that. Europeans will not forget that. That is a grotesque breach of trust. I think the special relationship is a fantasy put about, if I may say so, Piers, by the media and politicians.
Well, just about everybody agrees that NATO and Europe have been complacent about living in the comfort of US security. That's why, at Trump's insistence, they're all ramping up spending, and so they should. But just about everybody also agrees that both America and Europe are significantly weaker on their own. NATO and its member countries have refused to join the Iran war for very sound reasons. First and foremost, it's a defensive alliance. It was created to maintain peace, not create war. Second, by any reasonable definition, the Iran war is to many people an illegal one. If there was evidence of an imminent threat and a right to self-defense, we've yet to be presented with it. Many people in my country and across Europe are asking, why should our men and women risk their lives for a war that you began without coherently explaining why? The so-called paper tiger has been ready to support the United States on countless occasions. 13 countries mobilized after 9/11 and fought alongside the US for 20 years in Afghanistan. European allies supplied 30% of the airstrikes in the fight against ISIS. They share intelligence and assets all over the world. They were there in the Gulf War. They were even in the US after Hurricane Katrina. Trump is threatening to walk away and leave the global oil supply in chaos because he says the US has plenty of its own resources. Well, that would leave America's closest allies stranded, with the notable exception of Israel, which has no intention of ending hostilities anytime soon. It would also leave the Iranian people stranded. For all the talk of liberation and Trump to the rescue, they'll be living under the same regime, weakened but angrier than ever. Joining me to debate all this, attorney and Iranian-American activist Lebon, Aaron Mate, the journalist with the Grey Zone, Iranian-Canadian activist and former MP Goldie Gamari, and Anna Kasparian, the host and executive producer of The Young Turks. So welcome to all of you. Lebon, I honestly can't keep up with where we are with this war, other than I read somewhere today, I think Axios reported this, that one of the Trump administration had said Trump isn't playing 3D chess, he's playing 12D chess, and that he basically throws out all these contradictory things because he wants to keep the enemy guessing. Now, maybe that's true, but it might also be, I would offer up as an alternative theory, that he's got himself into something that he quickly has realized is not a good idea, but not because taking out the Iranian regime is not a sound idea in principle, or they've been an appalling repressive regime, but not a good idea because the Iranians have hit back in a way I think that they've been taken by surprise by the scale of it, economically, by closing the Strait of Hormuz, by attacking the Gulf states, and that the combined effect of this has been a shuddering shock to the global economy. And so Trump wants out, and yet it's very difficult to see how he gets out with a convincing claim of victory. So those are the theories. What's your view?
I mean, at the end of the day, my view from the very beginning, and still my view to this day, is that this operation, whatever it is, has to be seen through to the end, because the worst case scenario is that this war ends and the regime is still in power. That's worse than if the war never happened at all. And so in terms of what I'm here to do, or what goal...
Notice how the narrative is shifting from it being a really quick adventure. It's just a detour into this little engagement. That's all it is, a quick little engagement. That's all. To now, we've got to stay there till the end, right? And the end could be longer than it was in Israel and in Iraq or Afghanistan. Oh, well, sorry, we lied to you.
Goldie is here to do is represent, these sentiments of the Iranian people and how we feel about what these military strikes are doing, which are targeting an oppressive regime that, we all know has been oppressing the Iranian people for 47 years. In terms of the military strategy, that's not really within our purview. The only thing that we can do is trust that the United States government knows what it's doing and has an effective plan to remove.
Why is that America's job? I don't care if they're oppressing their people. We're oppressed by our people. Like, our people in charge are oppressing us. So why do I care? This is not a job of the American government to right all the wrongs in all these third world countries we have nothing to do with.
This regime.
Okay, but explain this to me. I get that. But let me just ask you this. Donald Trump said yesterday that the mission of making it impossible for Iran to develop a nuclear weapon had now been achieved, which seems to be where he's edging now as the sort of totality justification for the action he took. But there's one problem, is that all the enriched uranium remains untouched, underground in Iran. The capacity to develop that into a nuclear weapon remains exactly as it was before this war was started. So I don't understand how Donald Trump, or anybody, frankly, can claim that they have stopped Iran from being able to develop a nuclear weapon when all the tools they need remain exactly where they were before it started.
Well, that's the question that's on everybody's mind, right? The only thing that we've ever asked is for this war to go to completion and for this regime to be removed. It was never in our imagination that you would stop at the point that,
Notice that's not an answer. She has no answer for it. Like, what would stop them? Oh, well, that's the question everyone has. That's not an answer. Yes, everyone does have that question. That's why he asked it to you, who is a panel of experts. So that's your job to give us an answer, not just say, I don't know either. That's the problem. Our leaders don't know the answer either, just like you don't, expert.
Their nuclear capabilities were decapitated. We were told that the end of this war would be when this regime fell, that uncompromising surrender. That's the only ambition that we were ever told. So I don't know what to tell you about this falling short at just, well,
that, you see, okay, I'm going to bring the others in. I mean, Anna Kasparian, that's really interesting because, Elika's reflecting there what so many people are thinking, which is the goalposts have changed so often. It was early on, this was going to be regime change. And they thought by decapitating the top of the regime, killing the Ayatollah and a lot of the top people, then naturally, and apparently this was what the Israelis told the Americans, there will be uprisings and the regime will topple. None of that has happened. So they've now...
What? What Israel told us didn't happen? Well, I'm just not used to that.
Moved, it seems to me, to a different, game plan, which is actually what we meant all along, was degrading their military and stopping them building a nuke. They've done the first, that has to be accepted. They've massively degraded the Iranian military, but they've come nowhere near to stopping them developing a nuclear weapon, if Iran chooses to, because the uranium is still there.
Unfortunately, you have two different countries that are involved in this effort to, I guess, either topple the regime in Iran, which isn't going to happen, or, degrade Iran's military capabilities and ability to build nuclear weapons. For the Israelis, it was never, ever about nuclear weapons. It was never about degrading Iran's military capabilities. It was always about regime change for them. But in order to build consent or manufacture consent among the American people for a war that we all knew was going to be a disaster, the American people were fed lies and all sorts of fear-mongering about how Iran is such a threat that we need to get involved and we need to disarm the Iranians. Okay, how is that working out for us? There was no strategic military plan in place. Elika is on the propaganda wing and she's like, oh, I don't know, it's not my job to think about the military strategy. No, Elika, it is your job to think about military strategy because you're advocating for something that's going to get American soldiers killed. It's going to get innocent civilians killed. In fact, that's happening right now as we speak. And so you should ask yourself, is there really a reliable path here, a militaristic path that's going to secure what I personally want, which is regime change? And honestly, there isn't a path. There isn't a path. First of all, I don't have a path because I've analyzed the situation and realized that Iran has a formidable military and that we're going to put soldiers in jeopardy by taking them over there. I didn't interrupt you, and you're interrupting me. Why are you interrupting me? Piers, are you going to intervene? Because she's interrupting me when I didn't interrupt her.
Yes, I think that's fair comment. You shouldn't interrupt each other because we can't...
Oh, somebody woke up the moderator. Yeah, finally.
Can't hear either of you when you do, so...
I appreciate it. It is important to ask yourself, as you're advocating for military action, whether or not that military action is going to secure the gains that you're advocating for. And if you looked at the landscape, if you looked at the terrain in Iran, if you looked at what Iran is capable of doing, the fact that they control the Strait of Hormuz, you would think about all these elements before spouting off about getting the United States involved in a war that isn't going to secure what you think it's going to secure. There isn't going to be regime change in Iran. And by the way, I think it's disgusting that we are dragged into a war on behalf of a foreign country that does not plan to put any of their boots on the ground. Not a single IDF soldier is planning to be on the ground.
Okay, that's a really interesting point. Let me bring in Goldie Gamari. Welcome back to Uncensored, because it seems to me, look, I'm not a military expert, but a lot of my family have served at high level in the British military. And there is only one way to get that enriched uranium and therefore be sure that you can prevent Iran in the future developing a nuclear weapon, because they're very advanced as it is with this uranium. And the only way you can do it is with ground forces. The problem is it's incredibly dangerous, that operation, because of the terrain there, because of the way you would have to do it, because of the embedded...
Notice how concerned they look. It's not their troops going in. They don't care. They don't care. As long as it's not their people, It's our people that are going to go die there. We're going to have the boots on the ground, not these people. They don't care.
Defenses that the Iranians clearly have, the drones they have, and so on. This could very quickly, if America tried to do this, and I think it's perfectly reasonable, Anna, to point out, so far there's no suggestion the IDF will join this, even though it's clear from Marco Rubio's own mouth that America went into this because the Israelis said, we're doing it with or without you. If it becomes a ground war, this could become very quickly disastrous. I mean, do you accept there's that risk here?
There's always a risk in everything that happens, but I mean, ultimately, we're dealing with the most powerful military in the world, the U.S. military. Their intelligence is top notch. President Trump himself has said that the reason that he decided to begin this as he calls it, an excursion into Iran is not because of Israel, it's because he assessed the threats to the United States. And,
just curious, she just said our intelligence is top notch. And it's occurred to me, how do you know that? What makes you say that it's top notch? Didn't we go into Iraq because of our intelligence? How good was it? Right? All these wars that we get into are because of intelligence that we never get to see. Who says we have good intelligence? It looks like our intelligence is just, we want to do this thing, so we got to go find an excuse to do it. Like, why else did they shop all the reasons to invade before they fucking just did it? That's why, because they have to find an excuse to do these things. It's not even about intelligence. The intelligence is irrelevant. That's just an excuse that they can use to get into that war.
Obviously, the commander-in-chief of the United States of America has way more intelligence information than, just random podcasters on YouTube. So, I trust President Trump. I trust his analysis. And Pete Hegseth has also said that the vast majority of the Islamic regime's ground forces, it has been destroyed. Their drones, their missiles, everything. So the only thing that's really left of the Islamic regime is just their paramilitary forces. In fact, they're so weak that they're now not only bringing militia groups from Iraq, but they're now actually conscripting 12-year-old children, which is a war crime. So the Islamic regime is now using children to fight.
But if they're that weak, all right, look.
In Saudi Arabia, you can marry an 8-year-old. Are we invading Saudi Arabia? Why not? Why not? I thought we cared about children. We're going to fight every war against every country that has fucked up things going on. We would be fighting the entire world. So what point is this dumbass making? None. No point at all.
Let's take for a moment your premise that they're being almost obliterated, which I keep hearing. Okay, but from where I'm looking, the regime has not been displaced. I mean, Donald Trump this morning put out a new post on Truth Social saying Iran's new president, much less radicalized and far more intelligent than his predecessors, has just asked the United States of America for a ceasefire. We will consider when the Hormuz Strait is open, free and clear. Until then, we're blazing Iran into oblivion, or as they say, back to the Stone Ages, his usual hyperbolic rhetoric. But we don't know who he's talking about, by the way, because no one's come forward from the Iranian side to say, yes, that's me, and we are talking to the Americans.
And Piers, I think that's actually very funny because as far as we knew, the president was Pezeshkian. If President Trump is saying that there's a new president, right, does that mean Pezeshkian has been obliterated?
Well, that's why I said, we don't know who this guy is. We don't know that he's much less radicalized because we've no idea who it is, or that he's more intelligent than his predecessors. It could just be Trump playing games, trying to divide and rule with the IRGC. That's highly likely, I would think. And maybe that's an effective tactic. Maybe that's an effective tactic. We shall see. With all these things, once a war starts, it's very, very difficult to predict how this plays out. But what I would say about the strength of the American military is there's been an asymmetric war going on here. And I'll bring Aaron in here. The asymmetric war is that you've got the American and Israeli combined incredibly powerful military, the most powerful military we've ever seen in this planet, waging merry hell across the skies of Tehran. But at the same time, the Iranians, like I said earlier, very skillfully and with great cunning, it has to be said, doing a very effective job in economically strangling the world through the Strait of Hormuz, and also strangling the economies of the Gulf states, its neighbors, by attacking refineries, by attacking tourist areas and so on. This has been very effective. I think far more effective than the Americans and Israelis thought may happen. So you've got two wars going on here. And my guess is because of the pain that's happening at the gas station, prices, food prices to come because fertilizer's been shut and so on. You know, you're going to see a lot of fallout from this all summer. You've got the midterm elections in America in November. You know, Donald Trump is many things, but he's not politically stupid. He will know that they could take an absolute beating in the midterms and render him a lame duck if he doesn't do something to resolve where he is right now. I think he wants out, which is why he keeps talking about 2 to 3 weeks, I'm gone and whatever. What do you feel?
I think his foremost concern right now is calming the markets. And that's why he keeps saying that he's having these great talks and they're getting somewhere and he's going to wrap this up really soon. I can't divine what's in his head anymore.
I just want to point out that this is a 2-week-old debate. So those 2-week deadlines that Trump gave back then, I think you could see it's bullshit. Like we said then, bullshit.
I used to think he had smart political instincts, but I think going to war against Iran in a completely unjust, unprovoked fashion has blown up that impression for me. And there's a debate going on right now that we're having about whether or not the Trump-Netanyahu war in Iran is effective. I think we're missing a more fundamental question. Is it right? Is it just? And the fact that Iran is waging asymmetrical warfare underscores a really important point. It's the weaker party militarily, which underscores it's not a threat to anyone. Trump went to war because Iran acts as a deterrent to U.S. and Israeli hegemony in the region. That's not a threat to anyone's security. It's a threat to domination. And that's why Iran is being subjected to these attacks. And it's whether or not Trump can achieve his goals or not, it doesn't obscure the fact that it's fundamentally illegal. Under the standards of the Nuremberg trials, aggression is the supreme international crime. That is what Trump undertook here. Even his own intelligence agencies affirmed a year ago, and this hasn't changed, that Iran did not have a nuclear weapons program. It limited its missile ranges. At best, they said
but
by 2035.
But hang on that point, because we do know they were clearly lying about the capacity of their missiles, right? They fired a missile only last week, which went twice as far, a ballistic missile, twice as far as they had said that their missiles were capable of going. It didn't actually land on its target, but the distance it traveled would mean it could potentially get to Europe, it could get to London, to Paris, whatever. That is in direct contradiction to the undertakings Iran are given about the distances its missiles could go. So they've clearly been lying.
Well, hold up. Do you think we told them about all our weapons and what they can do? I don't think we do. Why would you do that? Why would you honestly tell another nation, you know, the accurate statistics of your weapons? We don't. We have weapons that make people just throw up and like shit their innards out. Like, we didn't tell them about that. Did we tell Venezuela we were going to use that on them? No, you just use it. That's silly talk, Piers.
Well, not necessarily, because first of all, even NATO said we can't confirm that Iran fired that missile. So I'm not even sure that it was Iran. But let's say it was Iran. If it was Iran, then it's quite possible they put on.
Well, who else fired it?
Well, listen, I wouldn't put anything past Israel. They carry out all sorts of nefarious acts all the time. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a false flag. But listen, let's assume it was Iran.
Well, hang on, Aaron. You're expecting me to You're expecting me to believe that Israel deliberately fired a ballistic missile at an American base.
Yeah, that happens. Believe it or not, that has happened in the past.
Yeah, Israel decades ago attacked the USS Liberty, killed a bunch of U.S. soldiers. So actually, I wouldn't put it past them. Listen, let's assume it was Iran. Let's assume it was Iran. Just hold on a second. I'll just finish this point.
Useful idiots are hard to find.
I'll finish this
Is it
point.
possible?
If it was Iran, if I can finish this point, it's possible they put a smaller payload on the missile, which means it can travel further. And regardless, look, this whole debate is skewed because Iran is defending itself against an act of unprovoked aggression, an act that is not targeting the quote unquote regime. It's hitting schools. They massacred over 150 girls in the opening hours of this unprovoked war. They're hitting pharmaceutical plants that make medicines, for Iranians.
On this point,
they're hitting residential buildings.
Yeah, but Aaron, the idea. Okay, but look, I have serious misgivings about this war and have done from the start. I do not think,
Aaron, that's how America liberates those people.
that Iran had an imminent capacity to have a nuclear weapon or to use one. I think that is nonsense. And also flies completely in the face of what we were told after the 12-day war last summer. We were told that whole capacity had been destroyed anyway. So none of that makes any sense to me. But the idea that Iran had never provoked either Israel or the United States, I mean, that is also patently disingenuous, because Iran for the last few decades has systematically waged a campaign of terror through the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, and other proxies against Israel. Ayatollah has led the chants of death to America, death to Americans. They have killed, I think, more Americans than any other nation in the world, right, in the last 47 years. So this idea that this has all happened out of nowhere, I just think is disingenuous.
I think the fundamental problem in the region is that you have an Israeli government that gives itself the right to displace the indigenous Palestinians, steal their land, and deny them a homeland. And Iran, on that question, has been far more accommodating than Israel and the U.S. have in terms of accepting the international framework for the Israel-Palestine issue. Iran has said that they would support the Arab Peace Initiative, which offered Israel full normalization if it allowed Palestinians to have a state in just 22% of historic Palestine. Iran has cooperated with the U.S. in the past. You mentioned earlier that Trump's turning his back on NATO and NATO helped the U.S. in Afghanistan. So did Iran. Iran provided critical intelligence to the U.S. that helped the U.S. capture fighters from al-Qaeda and the Taliban. And that was blown up when George W. Bush gave the speech declaring Iran to be a part of the axis of evil. The U.S. Ambassador Ryan Crocker said that seriously undermined Iran's cooperation, which was very, very fruitful. And there have been so many more diplomatic initiatives since. Iran sent Bush a letter offering to resolve all these issues. Bush ignored it. There was the Iran nuclear deal, which even Trump's own administration certified that Iran was complying with.
And what about the slaughter?
I like this dude. He's like Dave Smith light. Good for him.
What about the slaughter of thousands of protesters, including many completely innocent civilians on the streets of Iran in January, for example? Because the noise from the left, I have to say, was pretty. I'm not accusing you or Anna. I don't know what you both said about it at the time. You can enlighten me.
Said nothing.
But there was a deafening.
I'll tell you what I said.
Well, hang on. There was a.
Don't speak for me. Don't put words in my mouth.
No, I actually remember very well.
Sorry, I'm actually talking.
You don't know what I had to say about it.
30,000 people were killed. I heard it from your mouth.
Okay.
There's no evidence that 30,000 people were killed. Show me the evidence.
There it
I'll
is.
admit that
There
I'm
it
wrong.
is. But
How many do you think were
Where
killed?
is the evidence, Elika? Where's the
You want me to tell you?
What's
you
the
want me to tell
source?
you?
Yeah, go ahead.
I can tell you the source. I can tell you the source because how quickly you believe in terrorist regime, but you don't believe.
Just give me the source. I don't need to.
I'm going to tell you
It's going to be Israel said so.
right now. I'm going to tell you right now. Silence, and I'm going to tell you every single hospital in every single city in Iran gave a tally of how many corpses were in their beds. In total, that amounted to 36,500 people, and that didn't include the people that were
source? What source compiled those numbers?
The hospitals.
Every hospital? Okay, so you yourself talked to every single hospital?
I saw the list. I saw the list of every hospital with every number.
You saw the list.
Google it.
Who
Google
published
it.
the list? Who published the list?
It's everywhere. Human rights
it's organizations. You should know the source. You
published.
should memorize that. If you're so heated about
I'm
this
telling
issue.
you.
But
You should
you know what's
memorize that.
interesting? Okay, hang on. You know what's interesting, Anna? Yeah, you're having the
go ahead.
complete reverse. You're having the complete reverse.
No, I'm not.
Well,
I'm not.
okay, I'm going to explain. We haven't
The
heard
New York Times just published a piece on this that I hope you read. That I hope you read.
You haven't heard my question yet.
Right. You care about the deaths in Palestine, but
No,
you don't
no,
care about
not
the
that,
Iranian
not
people.
that.
I do care about the
You
Iranian people.
got utterly,
Unfortunately, they've
hang
been.
on. You got utterly
Go ahead.
enraged when people questioned the number of people who'd been killed in Gaza, rightly, because it turned out those numbers were broadly accurate and have now been admitted by Israel. And yet here you are doing exactly what so many Israelis
Israel admitted something, so it must be true, huh, Piers?
guested on this show about the deaths in Gaza. You're just refusing to believe any of the numbers coming out of things. So my question for you would be, well, if it wasn't 30,000, then how many do you think were killed?
I don't know. I don't know
So
exactly.
how do you know it wasn't 30,000?
Hold on.
Sorry, hang on.
Elika,
Sorry,
let me make
again,
my point.
Anna,
If you're going to ask a
Anna,
question, let me answer.
So if you don't know, you have to go off of this evidence that no one can tell us the source of. Just a rumor somebody heard somewhere on the internet.
Let me answer the question.
Anna,
I know, but let me answer the question.
My point being, the very question that I used to ask all the Israeli guests who would try and cast aspersions.
I know.
Is the same question
Let me
I'll put
explain
to
myself.
you. It's the same question to you, which is, if you don't know, how do you know it wasn't 30,000?
Okay, let me explain it, okay?
You don't know.
Let me...
So let's go off of this information that's not confirmed because you don't know it's not true yet. Israel said it's true, so let's just go off of it. That's why we're in the situation we're in, Piers. That's what we're trying to show you.
No, Piers, let me explain it. Okay, when it comes to Gaza, The Gaza Health Ministry, historically, you look at the history, they have historically been accurate and very careful when they publish death tolls. Okay, they're always confirmed. In fact, oftentimes they're an underestimate. So I know to trust the Gaza Health Ministry because of its history of publishing accurate data. In the case of Iran, we know a few things. We know because so many American former government officials and current government officials and the Israeli media were literally bragging about putting Mossad on the ground, arming people. And that's why so many of the law enforcement or police officers, security forces in Iran were also killed. Okay, there's a lot of disinformation coming out, and there are different sources publishing different information about the death toll, which is why I don't know. I have not found a source that I fully trust
and yet you
that's
are
giving me accurate data.
No, but Anna, again, I would use the same questioning I did to people about Gaza.
How many of them were killed by Mossad operatives? How many of them were actually killed by
I'm not asking you that.
governments?
I'm simply saying once you've admitted you have no idea how many were killed, I find it extraordinary that you would be so emphatic in refuting the 30,000 number. You don't know.
All she said is, we don't know. You're supposed to say you do know when you don't know because you can't get any accurate information. You just go off the inaccurate information. That is not logical in any way.
You think 30,000 people were slaughtered in 1 week?
I think it could easily have happened from the scenes that I was looking at. Yes.
I don't
Okay, you don't believe it. Okay, but
I don't believe it.
Given that you've admitted you don't know, you don't know. Let me come back to.
Her point is, they don't know either. She didn't say she knew. Her point was, they don't know either. We're not going to go off of information just because somebody said it anymore. We don't live in that world anymore, Piers.
To Elika, I have noticed there has been I think there has been a double standard here from people on the left, who I respect, where they seem to care an awful lot more about Palestinians being killed in Gaza, which I also shared their care about, and the protesters killed in Tehran at the start of the year. And it was deafening. It was deafening. And Hollywood was deafening by its silence too. And I just think that's another thing that is just wrong about this. It's intellectually dishonest to people, right? To pick and choose which
what's dishonest, Piers? The fact that,
that
Iranians are getting killed right now. Civilians are getting targeted right now.
Dishonest to pick and choose who you believe. I believe people who have shown me that they are honest. I don't believe people who lie to me about everything, including whether or not they have nuclear weapons. I'm supposed to just believe them? Why? They're not honest about anything. What are they honest about, Piers?
This war began, with 175 people getting slaughtered at an elementary school? Elika, you got anything to say about that? Do your people feel liberated?
Yeah, I do.
You don't live in Iran? You've never lived in Iran. And you have the audacity to talk about this as if it's the liberation of the Iranian people as they're getting killed, as their hospitals are being bombed, as healthcare workers are
I've been to Lululemon many times. Does that make me a spokesman for them?
being killed. Disgusting.
Right. Let Elika respond. Let Elika respond.
I'm not going to shut up.
You talk about,
well, you're not going to respond because you asked me to stop her interrupting you. So I'm now saying to you,
okay,
Anna,
go ahead, Elika.
let her speak.
Please go ahead.
That was after she interrupted quite a bit, though, Piers.
When you talk about the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry, you say their numbers have historically been accurate. Well, did they ever separate civilians from oh, good. Insults. That's good. Did they ever separate civilians from combatants? They didn't. And in the end, we discovered that that number did include many combatants. Okay.
The idea that's the first actually. Thing.
Yeah.
You know their numbers.
Correct. That's good.
83%
right?
civilians.
Okay. Are you going to interrupt?
83%.
Are you going to interrupt? Actually, Hamas said that 50,000 of them were combatants. Regardless, you are quick to trust the Hamas-run health ministry, which just shows who you trust, right? Which is terrorist regimes. Second of all, you sat there just right now and said 178 school children were killed. First of all, you said nothing about the hundreds of children that were killed on January 8th and January 9th by the regime. And second of all, where did you get that number from? The only people who have confirmed that number is the regime. And that just goes to show.
Wait, hold on. Wait, are you denying that 175 people were slaughtered in that school? Are you denying it? Are you denying it?
Let me finish my point.
Because you did deny that it was the US Israelis that did that.
Are you going to let me finish my point? There absolutely were children killed in that strike. How many? We don't know, because the only people who have confirmed it is the regime.
Yeah, but
okay?
again, Elika, okay, well, let me, hang on.
Let me finish.
Let me jump in there.
Let me
Because
finish my
you're now doing exactly.
I'm not.
You're now.
If you let me, Piers, if you let me finish
we
my
know,
point, you'll see
we
that that's
know
not
how
what
many
I'm doing.
children were killed.
No,
we know how many were at the school.
That's not what I'm saying. Piers, let me finish my point and you'll see what I'm saying, okay? I'm not saying what's real and I'm not saying what's not real. Here is the point that I'm making.
Which is exactly what Anna said. She said, I don't know the information. I just don't believe that they're being honest because they're never honest. And now she's about to do the exact same thing.
When the people, okay, tell you something, doctors, witnesses, eyewitnesses on the ground tell you something, okay, it is questioned. When the regime says something, it is believed. So what I'm saying is that I'm pointing out to the hypocrisy of how easily they believe regimes, which they might be true. It might be true.
Yeah, but you know, the trouble is, again, you're both basically casting doubt over.
No, they're both saying the same thing. I don't believe Israel, and she said, I don't believe Iran. It's the same fucking thing.
The death toll
It's
numbers.
not about casting doubt.
You're both
It's not
casting
about
doubt of the
casting
death
doubt.
toll numbers of the other side. And that's my point about
It's about
intellectual
showing who
dishonesty.
they
I don't
believe.
think it's honest to do that. I mean, in relation to the attack on the school, it's pretty obvious to anybody what has happened there.
We know that people were. We know
why. It used to be.
The point of how quickly they
let me finish
the
my
regime.
point, please. It used to be part of an IRGC compound. Then it was moved out several years ago to be just outside the compound. I suspect they clearly deliberately attacked the compound, and the missile was slightly off and hit the school and killed over 160, 70 young schoolgirls at school. It was a disgusting thing to happen, and what America should have done, what President Trump should have done, is just immediately had the investigation, concluded it immediately. They know if one of their missiles hit that school or not. They knew immediately. And they should just say, we made a terrible mistake. We were aiming for the compound next to it. We hit the school. Terrible things happen in war. Terrible mistakes happen in war. We are owning this mistake. I would respect any country that says that when that kind of thing happens enormously more than I respect the obfuscating and disingenuous bullshit we've heard about the attack on that.
And what did Trump say? We don't know where that tomahawk came from. We sell those to all kind of dirty people. That's his fucking answer. As if any other those dirty people were around the war they were starting. Only one side had tomahawks.
School. Right?
Absolutely, but Piers, that's not the point. The point is that how quickly people run with numbers provided by a regime that historically does nothing but disseminate propaganda, and how quickly they question the words of the witnesses of people who have seen this massacre on the ground. That shows you who they defer to, and that is what's worrying.
Okay, let's just
I'll make a point, Piers. The government published a list of people that it says were killed during those protests. If people think that list is false, what they can do is
they're either alive or dead.
There has been.
You know what? They're either alive or dead, and it will be verified. And my guess is that many thousands were killed. Exactly how many thousands, I don't know. I'm intellectually honest enough to say I don't know, but I certainly, because I don't know, I'm not in a position to emphatically deny any figure because I don't know. Let's just turn. I want to turn to another. Hang on, listen, we're running out of time.
Because those numbers are ridiculous.
I want to turn.
Those numbers are ridiculous.
I want to turn to another
So
issue.
From 30,000 to 40,000.
All right, we've done the ridiculous numbers. All right, stop talking, please.
Because you're
I want to change the subject and bring Aaron in here. All right, Aaron. I want to talk about this extraordinary thing yesterday where Israel's parliament approved a law that would make the death penalty the default sentence for Palestinians convicted of what they regard as deadly terror attacks. The legislation was pushed by the far right with Ben-Gvir, the national security minister, its driving force. After the vote, and I found this particularly sickening, he was seen opening bottles of champagne and celebrating, posting on X, "We made history, we promised, we delivered."
That's the people we send all our money to. Look at them celebrating all the new money they're going to get. No, this isn't about money. I think this is about the law. It's going to make Israeli people exempt from a law that they're passing that everyone else has to pass as long as you're not Israeli. That's nice.
And, I just found this, I have to be honest, completely repellent. I find Ben-Gvir and Smotrich repellent anyway. I think they are unbelievably far right. I think they have dragged Israel into very dark places, this Israeli government. And I think that this is indicative of what I mean by that. the death penalty has existed but not been used in Israel for decades. They're bringing it back only for Palestinians who they deem guilty of terrorism. Some will have committed acts of terror. Others are furiously disputed.
That sounds like a just society we should be defending in everything they do, right?
By the Palestinian side. So it's an arguable point. And we'll have to see who they decide they're going to kill. You know, Ben-Gvir and others were wearing nooses as badge lapels on their suit. It was sickening. But also, you know, they're saying it won't apply to Israelis, right? So you won't have Israelis being killed under this new law in Israel because, of course, they're not going to convict any of their own for any act of terrorism, even though many other people view a lot of the behaviour by some of the more rogue elements of the IDF to be acts of terrorism. So there's a terrible double standard there, which, and the way the Ben-Gvir and others have been celebrating it is sickening for anybody, right? Whoever you are.
Let's keep defending them and let them grow that country as big as they want. The Greater Israel Project, let's let them take over all that other land so that they're a huge world power. Because they're not bad at all, right? They'll make laws where it's not terrorism when they blow up babies, but if somebody else does something back to them, now that's terrorism. We get to kill you. That's the fucking way they think. Let's make them as big as we can in the Middle East. Why not?
What's your view of this?
Yeah, and this is the government that working class American soldiers are being forced to die for. Nobody signed up to defend this fanatical Jewish supremacist state, but yet this is what people are being sent off to West Asia to defend and to die on behalf of. As Anna pointed out, the Israeli military won't even sending its own ground forces if there is a ground invasion of Iran. This is what the Israeli government is. People like to think there was maybe an earlier time when the Israeli government was more liberal and things have gone the wrong way. Well, when you found your country on ethnic cleansing, when you claim that there's a divine right to steal land from somebody else, when you establish an apartheid regime that privileges one group, Jews, over another, Palestinians, this is what is going to happen. This is the inevitable result of Zionism. And it's what so many people around the world now are waking up to as being just incompatible with any basic standards of humanity. But yet we're constantly told by all of our leaders that Israel is a top ally, they share our values. Well, these aren't my values, and these aren't the values, I think, of most decent-minded people. So what you're seeing now, I think, because of Israel's actions, and it's not just, it goes far beyond this measure. We've just seen more than 2 years of a mass murder campaign against the defenseless civilian population in Gaza, which is ongoing. And also you're seeing concurrent acts of terror every single day by Jewish settlers backed by Israeli soldiers in the occupied West Bank. People are waking up against this, and global opinion.
Yeah, look, I would agree with you. I would agree with you on the settler point. I think there's been some outrageous aggression by Israeli settlers against Palestinians in the last few months. I would take issue again just with the way you characterize the defenseless civilians in Gaza. Of course, they're surrounded by Hamas terrorists who committed one of the worst acts of terrorism in modern times on October the 7th and are still embedded all around civilians and have been from the start of this war. So they're not, you know, if you're being honest again about what's happening in Gaza, they're not defenseless. I think it's gone way too far what's happened in Gaza. I think the initial defense I made of Israel's right to defend itself, its duty to defend itself and its population has been just desecrated by the scale of what has gone on there. And the fact they still won't let journalists in to verify what has gone on there says everything to me. It says they know what they've done does not live up to their claim to be the most moral army in the world. They've done stuff so bad, they won't let journalists in to look at it. And so, you know, that's my view about it. But I think the idea that no one has been there armed in Gaza able to fire back, obviously they have. That's what Hamas have been doing.
I didn't say they couldn't fire back. I said they can't defend themselves from one of the most sophisticated armies in the world, dropping 2,000-pound bombs on residential areas and destroying.
No, I get that, but the truth is that war went on for a long time because actually there was a lot coming back the other way too, right? So I agree with you. I don't disagree with your overall point.
His point is, why are we on the hook for that? That's way the fuck over there between two people we really shouldn't give a shit about either side. So why are we having to deal with it? Why is that our problem here in America? Like, there are bad shit in every country. I can name you some bad shit going on. Do we got to go stop all of it? Why don't we just stay out of that and let them handle it themselves?
It's just language is quite important. Let me bring in.
I agree.
Let me bring in.
Let me say one point, Piers.
I want to bring in Goldie on this point. You know, Goldie, you can defend Israel, Israel's government, and so on. I hate the way people conflate the actions of the government with Israeli people or Jewish people. To me, it's a ridiculous thing to do. It's anti-Semitic to hold the Israeli government to account whether they're this right wing and doing such terrible things. You know, when I looked at what Ben Gvir was doing there, right there, you know, I think I posted this on X. This is despicable to see a senior government minister of any supposedly civilized country cracking the champagne open at the thought of killing people. Whatever your argument about the people that they're going to put to death, wearing nooses on the thing that they've gone back hundreds of years into the Wild West.
To be fair, my only issue is that I think both sides should get killed for doing terrorism, not just one. That's my whole issue. I don't have no issue with them killing them, though.
You know, this is wrong, isn't it? Can you condemn
all
this?
terrorists?
I mean, my understanding of this law is that it is limited to Palestinians and Hamas terrorists who were specifically involved in the October 7 attack. So this is basically a law that's only for that particular incident. With respect to internal Israeli politics, I mean, I don't really comment on internal politics. Not really my thing. I mean, I
do for Iran.
Video, so yeah, because I'm Iranian. Of course, I'd comment on Iran. That I'm Iranian. Why
okay, well, you're not American.
What an
so why are you
idiotic
trying to drag
comment
America
make?
into
Of course
wars
I comment
that
on
you want
Iran. Why
America to
wouldn't I?
fight?
Why are you commenting on Iran? You're not Iranian.
Okay, then how about
Because it's our money. It's our money paying for this shit. That's why.
you leave America out of it? You want to comment on Iran, that's fine, but demanding
about
that
you
American
leave Iran out
soldiers
of it, then?
die on behalf of your little agenda is a little disrespectful, isn't it?
I think it's absolutely
It's not-
insane that
it's
you
not
think that I
America.
have anything to do with President Trump's decision to go in and destroy the Islamic regime. I think you're absolutely
I
insane.
mean, he takes
And I have nothing
counsel
else to
from the
say to
likes
you.
of
I have
Laura
nothing else
Loomer,
to
so
say to
you
you.
never know. You never know.
I have nothing else to
I'd
say to
actually
you.
like to go back to someone who has
And Anna,
things
I
of
will
substance to say
Anna, I
real
will
quick.
come to you about this
Yeah.
issue, but I just want to finish one point with Goldie. It's not true that this only applies to Palestinians who were involved in October the 7th. It doesn't. So that's
Well,
not.
then
That's
if that's the case, then I mean, as a former parliamentarian, I probably wouldn't be, sipping champagne and celebrating. I think, it's a very grave.
Well, especially a law that
it's
only
grave
applies
and
to one
serious
ethnic
situation.
group.
So, I mean, I would not.
Right, but it
behave
only
that.
applies to one ethnic group, right? I mean, how can that be remotely acceptable to anybody?
I'd have to go look at. I'd have to go look at that legislation. But ultimately, I mean, this is what they voted for. So it's their internal affairs and their sovereign state. And
Yeah, and you
I
know
would
what?
say that-
They're a sovereign state, but I guess Iran isn't. We got to get into their business, right? We don't look into Israel's business because they're a sovereign state. But Iran, we're going to get into theirs and police their fucking behavior.
Perfectly entitled to call it.
After what happened on October 7, I can see why there's a lot of passion around this situation.
Okay, Alec has dropped off. I don't know why. I wish people wouldn't do that, or at least say they're going to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's technical issues. All right. I hope it was. Anna.
May I jump in? Thank you, Piers.
Final point to you.
I appreciate that. So, look, in regard to that law that just passed in Israel, it isn't just the fact that it goes along with the existing apartheid state of Israel, where Palestinians are treated as subhumans. It's also the fact that Palestinians are tried in these kangaroo courts, basically military courts, that have a 96% conviction rate. And often these so-called admissions of guilt are secured under duress, under torture. And so a lot of innocent people are going to be hanged. And that's the whole point of the law that just passed. That's why the terrorists within the Knesset, the Ben Gvirs, the Bezalel Smotriches, they were celebrating specifically because of the fact that they know that they're going to have some legal path to justify the slaughter of more innocent Palestinian individuals. That's what's going on. And can we just have Aaron say one last thing? Because Aaron's reporting on what happened to a toddler, a Palestinian toddler, who was detained alongside his father in central Gaza is something that people really need to know about. Aaron, can you just briefly talk about that? Because I want people to know about what's going on.
Hannah, you're giving me too much credit because I haven't really done anything on this, but I do know the basic fact that there was a toddler seized in central Gaza along with his father, and he came back with burn marks. And the doctor
But that's
says
been the last report I saw about this. Sorry, the last thing I said was was erroneous, that reporting, and it was denied, and then the verified reporting came back. I think that it was not true.
Okay, well, I haven't seen that, but
We'll look into it. My understanding
the point is Israel slaughtered thousands of Palestinian children. The Washington Post
we're moving into a different.
Has a list of,
we're moving into a different.
I'm saying this is totally.
I wish you guys cared this much about
I don't want to move into other more general arguments about it.
They're getting slaughtered right now. They're getting slaughtered right now. They're getting slaughtered right now. Right now. Okay, because of what you want. Because of what you want.
All right.
Because of what you want. You're disgusting.
Okay, crazy.
It shouldn't be mandatory that in the last 3 minutes of every uncensored debate, a member of the Young Turks team comes on. You all lose your shit. It is possible.
How could I not?
Well, it is possible to end on a more civilized manner and just accept
it's really difficult.
Well, you have different opinions, you know. That's why I get everybody on with different opinions. But we should never lose our basic sense of... We shouldn't lose our sense of civility when we debate things, because that way madness lies. Next time. Anyway. It's always good to have you. Thank you to my panel. I appreciate it. And to Elika, who apparently was tech issues. Well, joining me now is the Palestinian political leader, Dr. Mustafa Barghouti. Welcome back to Uncensored. All
right, I'm going to end that here. That was just one of the debate. And Erica departed around the 36-minute mark from this debate. So I'll call that I guess that a rage quit, I guess. I don't know. She said it was technical issues. Her tech looked fine before that. So no idea. But let me get some music on here. Can I hear that? There we go. I will be back Friday. Not going to be a feminism special. Try and do Feminism Fridays, but it'll probably be more of this. This is what's in the news, and it's everywhere. So I'm going to be doing this for a little bit until we get this sorted out. I'll show you another one Friday. Peace.